Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February 28th, March the 6th, 2022. Now this is going to be a week like no other. We possibly and probably might have never ever experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. So of course this horoscope also has to be something that I personally have never ever done before. This is where, as an astrologer, as a spiritualist, as a mystic, I have a certain duty and I have to fulfill that duty right now. And one of these duties of any spiritualist, anyone who is in touch with the spirit world, well, that is to give the spirit a voice, to channel it and to deliver a perspective, that which can only be seen through heaven's eyes, because ultimately that is divine wisdom. And I was reminded of this duty in a very personal way, and please allow me to indulge in this moment where I share this with you, and this just happened yesterday. As you probably know, I recently lost my mom, and something that we used to do together with my mom is to watch an astrology show on TV in my culture where there is an astrologer, presenting horoscopes, but that astrologer always has a special guest, a person who is astrologer but something else as well, like a energy healer or a mystic or a specialist in any other field of activity of the spiritual domain, of course. And yesterday she had a really, really powerful mystic from my culture. And there on live TV, the astrologer, of course, said about the war and everything. And she said, and of course, we do not know how things will play out in the following days and weeks. And the mystic said, please, live on TV, of course, please stop right here, because you are a renowned astrologer, you are a mystic, true to whatever it is that you do. So the moment has come for us to be honest about this and to tell the truth. Yes, we do know. Yes, we can anticipate what is coming. So let us speak from a place of truth. Let this not allow to silence us. Because this is a moment when there is no truth. Or better said, the truth that we always knew is being challenged directly, a personal dichotomy, a paradox when reality doesn't make sense. So that means the only viable truth, if that makes sense, is the Jupiterian truth, the truth of our beings, the truth of our hearts. And as a species, we are a whole, we have a collective consciousness, so there is truth out there, we just need to know how to channel it down. And this is when the role that we have as spiritualists was never more important. So this first part of the horoscope is actually just speaking out without any kind of astrological formula what exactly is going on from a divine perspective and what it is that we should be learning from this. Now let's begin and accept this, that any world leader has astrologers, and governments and big people know astrology better than even us practicing astrologers, because they have resources that we do not. So this is a fact. Right now we have Mars and Venus meeting in the sky together. Very, very soon they will also meet Pluto, and it will be Mars's exalted degree, Mars in exaltation. So world leaders know this. If there was ever a more perfect opportunity to conquer, well, that is right now. But usually conquering means something symbolic. Getting what we desire, going after our dreams, anything that might represent an act of conquering, but on a rather human level, but whatever is in the sky is mirrored here down on earth. And sometimes, collectively speaking, it turns out as if world powers are acting through a single individual, and that individual can be extremely childish, and sometimes they can even suffer from a certain schizophrenia, insanity like anyone else. The symbolism of Capricorn, where the head of the state or the king, queen, the top manager, the first person, of course, decides for everyone alike, and that sometimes has massive disadvantages. We all know the advantages. We lived it for hundreds of years. We know what having a king, a leader, etc. is meant to do. But it is in times like this when we see the other side of the coin, when we see what happens when the consciousness, at the end of the day, of one single entity decides for a lot of people. This is the downside of it, and the time has come, at least from a divine perspective and even from an astrological perspective, that this changes. We astrologers have been speaking about the deconstruction, the fall, the destruction even of the old order ever since the clock started to tick from the early 2000s, and it got more and more intense as we got near 2018, 2019, and then the fated moment 2020, when destiny, change, destruction actually knocked at our doors precisely. And of course, the biggest role of this very, very strong Capricornian Pluto is to reveal the naked truth, to reveal all the skeletons in the closet, to reveal that which we see even when we shut our eyes, that which we can ultimately not unsee no matter what we do. And this is one of those moments. This is where, even if we close our eyes, even if we look away, even if we intoxicate ourselves with positivity, we cannot unsee what we're witnessing. And whenever something like this happens, that means the divine speaks to us directly, because there's the saying that when the divine speaks, no living entity, being, sentient, living being, whatever, can ignore it, because the message is that powerful. And this is how the universe communicates when it is not in the best of moods, when it is not very satisfied, when we do not meet even the minimum expectations. And the best weapon, or the best, let's say, symbolically speaking, tool to use is to allow, just to allow. If there is someone who has so strong ambitions that basically it is the most ambitious person alive, let's allow. That is the law of nature. Capricorn, the mountain goat. The mountain goat can survive and do anything it wants. That is nature's gift to it. And what can stop the mountain goat? Well, the opposite sign is Cancer, so the power of the people, ultimately. That which birthed it. Nature birthed the mountain goat, so she can stop the mountain goat at any moment. But people birth a leader, so this is where the answer is very obvious in the heavens above. And another very powerful energy is that this Pluto, Mars and Venus are trining Algol, the demonic star, the star of corrupted world leaders, the star of dictators, the star of living evil, basically. Of course, symbolic. All of it is just symbolic, yet the symbolism is playing out so beautifully, so exactly, so Taurianly in the world out there. And this is a trine. Pluto is the shadow and also the hand of fate. So Pluto gives this power to show the truth. This is your world, this is your leaders, this is your reality. You allowed, so I will allow as well. as above, so below, but as below, so above. That is also perfectly valid. If we allow, it allows. And this is reality. We have all the resources that we need for equilibrium and to function properly, yet because we allow the ambitions of some people to be more, let's say, authentic, or stronger, more fiery, more unstoppable, more fueled, pumped up maximally with the energy of sheer belief, yes. So if we allow this, well, this is what is going to happen mathematically, logically, scientifically, empirically. This is like a chemical reaction when you put two elements together and you allow, well, something inevitable will happen. But we must also ask ourselves, why is this Pluto? Pluto conjunct Venus and Mars. Mars is our power. Mars is our energy, our life force, the strength of our consciousness, what we can do with our consciousness. Venus is our heart, our value, everything that we basically love and stand for. And Pluto is the abyss, so this is taken away. We are powerless. We are meant to be powerless right now, but within that powerlessness, we discover our true inner power, Pluto, the power of our unconscious. Our unconscious acts with belief. And when it is belief that is the main key, we look at Pisces. We have the two rulers, the two kings basically of this sign simultaneously in this part of the sky, the most karmic part of the sky. Next week the moon will also join, forming the new moon phenomenon there, an incredibly strong karmic energy. We have the sun there, so basically the spotlight is on Pisces, on karma, on the past, on the truth that lies within the unconscious. And it is very rare when the universe pulls the curtains and points, this is the unconscious. This is how things truly look like, as absurd and as illogical as it may be, but this is what I work with. This is the material that I create with. And of course, fear, despair, the shock is one of those materials. It is not all positivity and rainbows and butterflies. There is doom and gloom and the abyss itself and strong fear. But fear can only fade away when we confront it. Only when the moment when we look it in the face and analyze it in any perspective, rational, emotional, etc., psychological, metaphysical even, when we confront it, when we become aware of it, Uranus, when we face it, it turns into power because we alchemize the knowledge. So the universe is also telling us, if you don't like what is going on, if you think, and when you is all of us, you is every single soul individually out here, when you think that this is unfair, I gave you the tools right now to work with. Yes, the tools are a little bit absurd because it's Pisces. Jupiter in Pisces is wish fulfillment for everyone, equally. For a certain world leader, let's not say his name, of course it's wish fulfillment, literally. He is making his dreams, his wishes, his desires come true before his eyes because he takes action. Mars, militaristic action, Mars in Capricorn, successful militaristic action, exalted Mars, 27 degrees of Capricorn. He fights with the shadows, information that he knows about other world leaders, and everything below the belt. He has everything below. Every single means, possibility, idea that you could think of to fight dirty, he has it, he controls it, he possesses it. Capricorn, possession. But there is Pisces, Neptune, Jupiter, Sun, Moon in Pisces. That represents faith and the true expression of faith. So what does this mean? It does absolutely not mean anything religious. It just means that this is when all of us collectively are meant to see that ultimately reality is what we make of it. and every single individual should be by design, by divine right. In a sense, that is the matrix, that is the design. We have to be, should be, that is the norm, that is what the universe, the divine, always intended for things to be like. The planetoid Eris, goddess of discord in the sign of Aries, we are sovereign beings of our own reality. We have power, divine power, over ourselves and our beings, and that implicitly means that in 50%, even over our life stories, including collectively, and when something just doesn't match our want, our basic expectation of reality, then all we can do is use mind over matter. Those who actually understand that this is how reality works and this is not magic, that this is sheer science, if you will, those are blessed and fortunate. And those who are not will still do this, but the hard way. Because by allowing something like this to happen, what does the universe do? Puts us in a situation where our souls have to choose what we want. Those of us who are aware of this will choose very easily. Those who are not will still choose anyway, and they will still choose with their most honest, most truthful hearts of hearts perspective, because the universe will put them in the kind of situation where, like it or not, want it or not, they will feel their own truths very closely, very intimately, so to speak. They will be intimately in a connection with their deepest self, if that makes sense. So of course everyone will choose. And based on that choice, the world change is here. It knocks on the door right now. This is when the age of Aquarius becomes active. In a very literal sense, astrologically speaking, Sunday, the 6th of March, when Venus and Mars activate 0 degrees of Aquarius, by then, a lot of things will look already so very, very different on the world stage, of course, and even in our individual lives. So again, let's use the tool that the universe gave us, even if it's weird, even if it's asking a bit too much from us right now. That tool is belief, but as I said, it is not the kind of religious belief. It is simply you being sovereign being over your own reality. Basically embodying your values. That's all there is to it. And psychologically focusing on this. That's it. It's so simple. Of course, those who know something additional, those who know practices, those who have connections to different realms, spheres, etc., of course, they will do a much more elevated type of work, but still, belief is the only tool we have right now, and belief is very simple, mind over matter. The mind is such a powerful tool that it can truly alter anything literally, and history and everything that we experienced until now truly shown us that, demonstrated in so very many ways, shapes and forms, personally at least. So let's do that right now. Simply believe our values more than what exists out there, and that belief, like a vacuum, will basically force the change to come. And we all know that this year, the second half at least, is about reconstruction, construction even. The new, let's build, let's work, let's put in the blood, sweat and tears. Let's create. It's about this, so it's actually very fruitful, prosperous. It is highly constructive. We never ever experienced such fertile, potentially fertile times and energies, and everything allows fertility, even nature herself. Now, of course, world leaders know this, so everyone has to seize resources and everything to construct from. And of course, the biggest resource right now is like cyber energy, if that makes sense, as in information in the cyberspace, plans, recipes, researches, science, stuff like that. So everyone is seizing what they need. It's so obvious. So this is where all we have to ask is for the universe, reality itself, by divine right, by divine design, to give us what is rightfully ours, and basically that's it. We know too well, out of sheer experience, having to live this through 1,000 times already. Every tyrant, every dictator, every bully is gonna be ultimately defeated one way or another. So, everyone knows fate. But right now we have to seize this astrological potential and the tool that the divine gives us to simply ask for change or attract change in collectively like a vacuum, because ultimately the same energy that empowers a certain world leader empowers every sentient living being on this planet right now. We share the same sky, so let's do the same. Putin uses physical resources and intelligence and everything else that he possesses, including the same resources as fate. He believes in his mission, in himself, along with billions of souls at the same time. So of course he's powerful, but let's do the same. By fearing him, by thinking that everyone is just an ant he can crush, we're just helping him. Let's do the opposite and believe in the people, believe in those who are caught up in this and have nothing political going on in their lives. They're just souls, people wanting to live out just a life. They don't even care how, when, where. They just want to fulfill the mission of their souls, that's all. Let's help them. Let's send belief and power to them. Or call for change, or whatever it is that we find within ourselves, because this is where we have to choose the future, the reality that is meant for us, that we love so much. The world leaders are using this celestial empowerment to create whatever it is that they need right now. They're like literally using it, because don't get me wrong, inaction and not taking action and turning a blind eye is a strategic move. It is basically a different kind of empowerment where we do not allocate resources, and that is ultimately a path to wisdom, because that means they will allocate it somewhere else. So everyone is using this energy to their advantage, don't get me wrong. They know what they know, and that's not the same thing that the rest of the world knows. So that one reality and what we're living is something totally different, like, wool over the eyes. But this doesn't necessarily matter, because, everything is going according to its, let's say, Uranian design. So whatever they're doing or not doing is perhaps much more important, because this is also a truth for all of us. Is that person who is not doing anything, let's say, who is making the choices, taking the decisions, well, is that truly a representative of your will, or are you just caught up in something that you never really agreed upon, not as a soul, not as a person? So the reality that you're living is really not something very suggestive of why you came here. And that is already a powerful contradiction and dichotomy, because what happens when there are two opposite forces? There is a discharge, a lightning bolt. And if 1,000,000, or let's say billion, different individuals experience this lightning bolt where reality that just doesn't match, it's not what it's supposed to be, then that lightning bolt gathers up and it's a tremendous energy. And even physically it's measurable energy, because when we are experiencing shock, our electrical impulses also are much more intense, and basically the harmonics, the electromagnetic frequency of the brain changes, so that is already a physical change. And this is, of course, another very exemplary manifestations of South Node in Scorpio, This is Scorpio. Scorpio is deception, destruction, below the belt hits. It is like corruption. It is like the most revolting crimes. That is what the venom of the scorpion means from a collective perspective. That is what it means in the world. And sextile, well, a sextile is a harmonious aspect, which is a blessing really, but that blessing needs action, it needs empowerment. So that means history shown any world leader what fear and psyops and violence can do. So there is a lot of excess in that. Excessive knowledge, excessive trial and error, excessive experiments. How many wars have we not had? And how many wars were not linked to Russia? And all of those wars, regardless who won, means experience, knowledge, research, basically lived experience. And that means power, excessive power. So this is how a certain world leader can use the power of the sextile. So South Node sextiling Pluto to get what he wants, because ultimately that is what this energy means. Pluto is power, control, ultimate dominance, the king of the kings, sextile with the South Node in Scorpio, obtaining this by the old means. Old South Node, the past, the wisdom of the past, but also all the mistakes of the past, the lack of wisdom sometimes. But this also has a good side to this. It doesn't work. It did in the past. This time it will not work, because that is the old. That is how we used to do things, even on this level, in the old paradigm. In the new paradigm, it doesn't work. And what can stop him is, on one hand, Neptune. Because on the 12th of April, we have Neptune and Jupiter conjunction. That means spirit floods into our world. Spirit can possess in any, let's be honest with each other, in any way, shape, or form. And what does possession mean? An inspiration, a thought, a feeling, an illusion, an idea, a dream that becomes so important for us personally that we obsess over it, and that obsession is the possession itself. When someone is possessed by spirit, well, they're living a moment of either schizophrenia or possession, if it's like almost biblical. But just being heavily inspired and obsessed by it is also a gesture when you're possessed by something which is not physical in nature, not logical, not empirical. It is just an inspiration, so the spirit is at work here. And that is what happens 1,000,000%. That is one of the expressions that is guaranteed to happen of the Jupiter and Neptune conjunction of the 12th of April 2022, so just around the corner. Now that will be the moment of reckoning, because it takes place at 27-28 degrees, the third decan of Pisces, another scorpionic energy, another scorpionic decan, so that will be massive karma. And Jupiter is truth, divine justice, karmic justice after all. Very, very powerful, meeting his co-ruler hand in hand with Neptune. Now that will be big. So maybe victory or triumph or getting what you wanted, especially if you wanted the wrong thing or you used the bad method of getting it, then is when you'll regret big time. Naturally, that is also when you'll regret not taking action and anything else. Because, as I said, one of the ways this Neptune and Jupiter conjunction is going to play out is spirit is going to flood the world. That is psychological energy. So everyone spiritual in nature, or everyone at least aware minimally, is going to be empowered by this. And what they'll do, well, they'll dream up or they'll do unconsciously. This is not conscious, this is unconscious. So unconsciously, that power will live through and act through millions and millions of people, so that will alter things in a way that we will not recognize the world after, but that is a different chapter. So where I'm going with this is, regardless of how doomy and gloomy and bad things look like right now, and regardless who seems to have every single trophy already in their grip, well, this can change very, very quickly, suddenly, and dramatically around that time. And also, let's not forget that the third decan of Pisces is the undoing of the self. So our actions, especially those actions which are condemnable, which are against the human spirit itself, well, those will be heavily drowned, dissolved, undone by this Jupiter and Neptune conjunction. And also, what we see here is, especially as I said, on the 6th of March, so next Sunday, where Venus and Mars activate 0 degrees of Aquarius, where the great conjunction took place, that is like stepping into the future. That is not just a preview as we had it before. This is where, well, look guys, it's real. You stepped into the future already. Now, of course, Aquarius is always visionary. So this also gives us a preview of where things are gonna evolve to from here in many different ways and from many different perspectives. Of course, this situation, and the economical situation is included. But before they get into Aquarius, they are gonna hang out at 27 degrees of Capricorn with Pluto, Mars in exaltation. So this is where the world economy, the stability, the economic, financial, Pluto money, stability of the world is gonna change forever. It's already in progress. The conjunction is already ongoing, active. That is the moment when it's gonna be exact. And with Mars, the activator, when Mars holds a conjunction with another planet, well, you can expect the day to be pretty precise, because that is the nature of Mars. So that will be a moment when there is a massive, massive, massive economic change. And we know Pluto and Neptune, that is oil, fuel, resources, energy. We know that that is the basic theme, the prime subject of this change. The change is gonna come based on something that happens with them. Is their price gonna skyrocket into something catastrophic, financially speaking, of course? Is their price gonna be dropping so dramatically that it's gonna alter things in that way? Or is Uranus gonna triumph at the end of the day, where it just puts a new power source that the world has never used before on the table and says, this is your future, guys, adapt? What is gonna be the ace here? Because an ace is coming, something that changes things very quickly and spontaneously, and it forces an upgrade. So we already know that this is massive for banks and economy and everyone living right now in the world. So this is for everyone, really. This is gonna influence everyone's pockets one way or another. That is how powerful this energy is. Not just because of this triple Plutonian conjunction, North Node in Taurus, that is also the very signature of value upgrade, value changes. As I said, prosperous, fertile soil, but that needs to be worked, planted, etc., taken care of. And there is also Scorpio, the opposite sign, the threats that might endanger what we're doing. And the threats are obvious: war, Scorpio, disease. Against Scorpio, the occult, the shadow, lies, psychology, and the misuse of that. Conspiracies, secrets, etc. These endanger prosperity. These endanger us planting the seeds for our future. And this is where it's humanity's spring. We must plant right now. and Pluto trining the North Node as well, and all of these planets, it reveals the truth. We need to know what we have right now in order for us to pluck the weed and plant the right seeds. Every living being, every human being on the planet right now needs to be aware of who is who, and of course, naturally, who they are as well. But that is a chapter which has already been closed. Who it is that we are. That was so 2021. This is where who the world is. This is where who we are as a collective. Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius. Speaking about Saturn, on the 3rd of March, we have Saturn conjunct Mercury in Aquarius. We also have the triple conjunction active and the trine to Algol. We also have the Sun conjunct Jupiter. Simultaneously, the Moon conjunct Neptune. And Jupiter conjunct Sun. Jupiter is truth, divine truth, the law, international law. It is basically jurisdiction and everything that has to do with it. So Jupiter conjunct the Sun, the light of truth, the light of existence, consciousness, Apollo. This is basically the eye of our being, and all of these sextiling Uranus. The truth that we cannot unsee, that we cannot ignore, that we have to be aware of, and the truth always sets us free. So this begins our freedom, really. This is where our freedom begins. How, we may not know yet, but at least we know that the clock in the sky shows that freedom begins. But before freedom begins, freedom has to be restricted. Mercury conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. Well, one of the means this energy can play out is massive disruption on the internet and cybernetic warfare, and we already seeing this play out. But another expression, this is where freedom of speech is gonna be limited, restricted, constrained. It's gonna meet its enemy, its greatest enemy right now, censure. So the 3rd of March, there is gonna be a big battle besides whatever may be going on the world stage, where the freedom of speech is gonna be a big subject, a big theme, maybe even protests, and there are gonna be a lot of issues around what is true and what is not true, and who is able or allowed to speak the truth and who has to be silent. So there is gonna be a big theme around anything related to media, to news, the truth, the freedom of speech, the truth of the people, because Aquarius is also the human community, the human interconnectedness, the internet, the freedom, civil rights, human rights. Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism, so you can imagine it's gonna be very heated. Yes, for us, all of this is gonna look like living chaos, something that we have never ever experienced before. But as I said, if we look at this through heaven's eyes, this is actually creative chaos. This is where something is being born. This is where the universe sees this as a chick inside the egg. The chick has no knowledge of what is outside the egg, but by instinct, by the sheer willingness of survival, the chick has to crack the egg from the inside and start being born and start looking at the infinity that is the world and coming to terms with it that, okay, I'm born now, so I have to cope and manage and explore and etc. Well, this is us as well. We don't know what someone inside the womb, the egg, before being born experiences. Maybe it's sheer terror. Maybe it's similar to death. We don't know. So we don't even know what we're experiencing right now, how to describe it. Is it terror? Is it disbelief? Is it excitedness? Is it anxiety on a collective level, of course? We don't even know what to make of this. But it is exactly that lack of knowledge which puts us into the position of the Fool in Tarot, 0 degrees of Aquarius. The world itself is gonna be the Fool on Sunday at least, so the 6th of March. And what happens after that? Well, in Tarot at least, the Magician follows, so that means making sense of all of this and gaining control of the 4 elements. So basically, everything that we as a collective need to survive and have balance in our lives, where the light of ration is what actually guides us and actually leads us, and not anything that goes against sheer ration. So we already know that that is what follows. Again, I say, the Sun conjunct Jupiter. We will all feel the truth from within ourselves, but understand this literally. We are definitely gonna feel this from within. Whatever is true for us is gonna be so crystal clear that you won't even be able to doubt it, because this comes from the unconscious. And what the unconscious pumps into us, we cannot ignore that. And at the same time, on the 3rd at least, on the 3rd of March, this moon is conjunct Neptune, the same time when the Sun is conjunct Jupiter. Neptune is the divine source. The moon is the soul itself, the portal of the soul, our divine essence, our emotional world, everything that we stand for, our own creation. So that alone is already an energy which can simply transmute our reality, both individually and collectively as well, of course. And speaking about transmutation, we must not forget the 2nd of March, when we have the Pisces new moon. And this Pisces new moon, on one hand, well, it is very, very close to Jupiter. Jupiter is, again, the truth, divine justice, everything that has to do with jurisdiction. And that means in a karmic sign to finally put things right for the long term and to correct our mistakes of the past. This is the condition to our new beginning, because ultimately that is a new moon. What are we creating? And in Pisces, what do we believe? What do we dream? What do we truly feel in our hearts of hearts, going in so deeply where the ration stops functioning, where the mind cannot fathom anymore? What do we feel inside of us when we go that deep that the mind cannot illuminate anymore? There is truth there. There is mystery. There is a lot of things that we cannot even imagine ever. But even that faint light that we still possess, the light of the moon, inside of our unconscious, that is still enough to give us at least the answer to the question, what would we truly like to live and experience? What do we love? Who are we within the darkest corners of our beings, that which is impossible to ever control or to ever gaze upon in its full sense? Who are we within the illusion? Who do we believe ourselves to be? No one apart from us can answer that question. And many times in life we discard illusions. Many spiritualists fight against illusions all their waking lives. And yet a time has come when Pisces, along with its new king Neptune and its old king Jupiter, shows us that actually even the very essence of existence is just an illusion itself. And that gives us the power to be artists and sovereign beings over our own reality, who it is that we dream ourselves to be. And within that dream, we also meet the divine purpose. Perhaps the divine is asking us not necessarily what we want to do, but it's asking us who it is that we dream ourselves to be. And once we find at least a small hint of that, the primordial dream within us, the primordial divine spark, the very source of illusion itself, that is the light actually, then we also know in what kind of world, in what kind of times is that person who is us going to live in. And this is how the universe creates a world through us, by forcing us to answer the question, to make the choice. Perhaps this is just the game of preference, really. If the creator is almighty and infinite, it can simply generate itself. So perhaps it's actually telling us, well, maybe we should take a little break from going to our jobs every single day and living life according to a certain routine which we ourselves didn't directly create, because we were just made to choose certain variants within a very strong detriment. So basically, we cannot really know the answer to the question of who it is that we are and what is our true stories of our existence in this form and in this incarnation is truly about, because we were never given the conditions and the liberty, which is of course one of the challenges of Earth School. That's not necessarily a problem, because everyone has certain resources to cope. But what happens when this meets a limit, when there are no more resources to cope? Well, that is when a big change takes place. That is when the universe stops the earth revolving, symbolically speaking, and it kind of did, especially at the first lockdowns, but it seems that we didn't quite understand the message it was delivering, so all it has to do is allow. And now that probably a lot of us are going to be shocked back into full awareness, instinctually at least, because that is also a certain expression of the sign of Pisces, at least the third decan, where, we're also instinctual, spiritual creators. Sometimes it is exactly the awareness and the exact willpower that is missing from this calculation, but it's exactly in those moments when we don't really know what we're doing, we're just doing something or allowing something to take place within ourselves. That is when nature is at work. So she is the best architect, she is the best orchestrator, she knows exactly what to do to save herself and ultimately her situation as well. And that is the instinctual spirituality, the source of our ancestors, the ancient wisdom, the sheer intelligence and spiritual, how should I even say, modus operandi of nature. Nature is not that much about philosophies, the higher mind. Nature is more like what she can do through the unconscious and instincts and gut and stuff like that. Just how she steers birds from one continent to another masterfully with precision. Our GPS cannot do that the same fashion she can. So she knows what she's doing and she's taking action because, she's also, her spirit, her intelligence, her being is also beneficiary of Mars in exaltation. So this is actually good news for nature herself as well. where there we may fail to find means, she will definitely find it for us because she's our mom after all. And that is again a moment when Neptune meets Jupiter and also Venus on the 12th of April, so it's a really powerful karmic discharge in a sense that spirit floods everything. And also by this time, the sun is going to be in the sign of Aries, and Aries is the newborn, new beginnings, but also powerful warrior energy. Eris, sovereignty, the divine sovereignty of every single being, free will and everything that has to do with it. So these are very, very powerful times coming when we will change the world, but in which direction, in which sense, in which way, shape or form, we don't know, because this change will also come through our unconscious, especially right now with the South Node in Scorpio. So we don't know what is in our heart of hearts, our most deepest self. Many of us were almost masterfully trained by karmic forces from 2012 until the present moment to release traumas, to find forgiveness, to purge, to discover ourselves, to do so much inner work that by the November eclipse in 2021 we were already vomiting this physically out of our beings, the past, the traumas, the hurts, the belittling and all of that, the guilt and the shame. So us who were part of this, the beneficiaries of this, when the purge took place, of course, we were not very happy about this, and all we could say, I can't take it anymore, I can't take it anymore. We complained to one another. We, of course, were helping each other through these very difficult times. Oh my God, not another purge, why did it happen to me? And we were living it as sheer hell, and now we know why, so that we can make a choice of what we truly love. Because people who might be very ignorant of their unconscious and everything that is buried in there, well, they might make unwise choices for themselves and even for collectively. Or the worst case scenario, they will just give this choice away for free to a single individual, and that's it. So the biggest lesson here is, let's be very careful who we empower with our beliefs, and just believing in someone, believing in their words, believing in their image, believing in their role, believing in what they're doing and taking it for real, that is empowerment. That is where you empower someone or something with your belief. It's not spiritual belief where you have to pray for them or send them energy. No. Accepting something or someone, their attitude, plan, etc. is already belief. So let's do what we have to do with our beliefs right now. Ultimately, this is what the sky is all about. And also, whenever there is a very powerful aspect to Algol, regardless of which powerful planet, and right now it's Pluto, so one of the biggest energies in astrology, there is something without a shadow of a doubt going to be either revealed or something will happen to a big world leader. So there is still an element of massive shock and surprise that we do not know about. And since the planetoid Sedna is also part of this trine, well, we can imagine that there is going to be a massive sacrifice attached to this. Either the sacrifice of a world leader or the sacrifice of a person that will reveal something. There is a lot of mystery still to be played out. And when I say this, this is where I'm not announcing next year's horoscope. I'm just announcing tomorrow's episode. So it's here, it's now. So let's all embody the biggest wisdom or the biggest lesson that Saturn wants to ultimately teach us, being in this very, very quantum part of the sky Aquarius, the future itself. Well, all of these hardships and impossible to overcome challenges are here in our lives to stimulate us, to force us, the Saturn and Uranus square, to have no choice, to be in personally, individually, in a certain phase in a life when we have no exit, when we cannot escape but we have to. Regardless if that is love, money, career, romance, living situation, spirituality, trauma, health, whatever that is. So there, at least one of these situations exists in many of our lives, and there is this collective situation. How do we stop a certain world leader, or how do we help people when we physically can't? There is right now one resource, the infinite power of the mind. Saturn says, if you take mind over matter seriously, and if you truly tap into this reality, forming, shaping, generating, very, very, how should I say, non-linear and non-rational to a certain degree capacity that lies within us. It lies within our genes, our mind, everything. Saturn in Aquarius ultimately. Regardless of what our take on this is, if we still try and use that power as much as we can, because right now that is the only key which unlocks the door to a life of greater ease, basically, of greater freedom and authenticity. So this Saturn is telling us, use your intelligence to the maximum capacity, and even when you might get blocked, even when it's way beyond you, then you must trust the potential of your mind to somehow find a way, to create a quantum string which somehow leads you there. Anything is possible, at least right now when Jupiter is traversing its home sign of Pisces. Well, let me just tell you this. Well, it is making the dream and wish of one person at least come true. And Jupiter doesn't really discriminate. The very essence of Pisces is boundless. There is enough for everyone. So let's all use this energy and fulfill our own wishes. But of course, our wish has to be selfless, pure, and full of love and compassion, and not something totally selfish. Because we do see the expression of the selfishness. Yes, it gets you what you want, but you also crush other people. So the karmic lesson and the warning sign, the do not do this, is already displayed there. So instructions are very clear and obvious. Let's wish for prosperity and peace, and for us to be able to understand each other and cooperate like human being, like part of a species. It's not that difficult. Because most of us want this and are ready for this. It's only just a couple of people who are refusing to allow. So let us not allow, and everything, by theory at least, should fall apart. Where there is no power source, there cannot be an activity, and these are just leaders, so the power source is clearly the people. And of course, we may not really do all that much physically or in any other sense, but no one can tell us what to think, or what to believe, or not to believe. So we still have a lot of power, at least, as I said right now, with Jupiter in Pisces. I must repeat this like a mad person, but if one certain person in the world out there can do this, and knows the recipe, and it's working like the charm, well, we can do this as well. So thank you so much for being here, for having patience and listening. This concludes this week's horoscope. This is where every single day is important. The energies are infinitely intense, and change and the winds of change, the famous song from Scorpions, yes, right now it is definitely in the air and everything is full of surprises, but at the same time, this is where it's also full of truth. So we need to really have our eyes opened and stand from the perspective of the observer and learn from this. So I'm really sorry that I couldn't focus much more on what this means individually in our personal lives, but I do believe that right now we need to act as one. We need to be more united, at least in spirit, than ever before in our collective history. Let me just say this, collective consciousness, well, it should be us really and not them. It should represent what everyone is doing consciously, their state, and not just of 2, 3, 5, let's say 20 big, important beings, so to speak, and everyone else is in total silence. It is not how it should be. So all we need to do is take back collective consciousness and allow what needs to be to be. If you'd like to support my channel and my work, you can donate in the PayPal link in the descriptions below. Well, right now, more than at any other moment, I think I need some help. Because I definitely won't be able to do this alone, so I need to find either someone or something, because things are not looking very good. But anyway, let's use the wisdom of Jupiter in Pisces. As long as we believe in it, anything is possible. Thank you so much, wishing you a safe and spiritually protected and guided week. May all your spirit guides and every single power that is allied to your being be with you in this really intense week. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.